Ghibli or Ghibli? Well, the Italian word is more like Ghibli, but the studio calls itself something much closer to Ghibli. They actually make jokes about this in their short animations, Ghiblis. You know what? Let's just call them Studio Ghibli. Welcome, greetings all. I am, of course, Dr. Gentleman, and today I'm not here to talk about literature or fine art or music. Today I want to talk about something else that I want this channel to focus on in quite some depth: animation. I watch a lot of animation. In between my undergraduate studies at Cambridge University and my doctorate at Royal Holloway, I went back to Cambridge to do a research master's. I specialised in Japanese cinema, especially the works of Ozu Yasujiro, but I intended to continue to write a doctoral thesis about animation. Not just anime, but all animation. Certainly anime would have had its place though, but unfortunately I didn't get funding. And I can just picture the fusty old dons at Cambridge passing my proposal around in the office for a good laugh. Hey, Archibald, get a load of this weeb! Either way, I wouldn't be able to continue there without funding, so I went back to my old speciality and did my PhD in First World War literature. But animation has always had a special place in my heart. You know, I love to watch, read about and study all kinds of animation, from Disney to Zagreb, from wartime propaganda to Toy Story 4. And at the centre of it all, something I'd like to explore through quite a few videos in this Pop Culture Masterworks series, are the works of Takahata Isao and Miyazaki Hayao, and their animation studio, Studio Ghibli. Mononoke-hime, or Princess Mononoke, is the film that really started my love affair with the studio's work, helping galvanise my love for anime and absolutely being a small contributing factor to my decision to move to Japan. The movie has flaws that my other favourite, Sento Chihiro no Kamikakushi or Spirited Away, perhaps manages to avoid, but the tone, scale and sheer emotional power of this movie allow it to stand, in my opinion, above anything else that Miyazaki has produced. And I say this having watched almost everything the man has had any role in creating. I saw this movie dubbed up on the big screen in what was probably the movie's only official UK screening, although don't quote me on that. It was part of Jonathan Wass's season of his personal favourites being screened at the Barbican in the UK. This was back in 2001. And you know, I really didn't know what to expect at the time. Totoro hadn't been part of my childhood. And what I saw transfixed me. You know, the spectacle, the mythology, the sheer beauty of the characters and the locations. I was honestly wowed. So our setting is a fantastical 14th century Japan, where forest gods of nature still thrive. But their existence is threatened by the development of industry and modern weapons of war, well, modern for the 14th century. Boar god is sighted close to the village of the Emishi, who are a semi-mythical ancient tribe from Japan, about whom we know quite little these days. The boar god has been turned into a demon by the iron pellet embedded in its body, and when it touches the young prince Ashitaka, he is cursed. Departing on a journey to find where this pellet comes from, Ashitaka gets embroiled in this struggle between gods and humans, which is an allegory for one of Miyazaki's favourite themes: nature versus human development. And in the middle of the two worlds, belonging not quite to one nor the other, Ashitaka finds San, who is the Mononoke princess, the supernatural being princess of the title. This nature versus technology theme is prominent in many of the studio's movies. I mean, you can also look at Nausicaa, for example, or Takahata's Pompoko. But I like that the opposition is not simplistic here. It's not good guys and bad guys, you know, fairies versus oil-spewing diggers, like in something like Fern Gully. Neither side is presented as being wholly correct or virtuous. There is no such obvious evil as can be found in, for example, the Nausicaa manga. Eboshi, the head of the industrial Tataraba, or Iron Town, is actually a highly charitable and respected figure. But her interests are at odds with those of the gods, who in turn are only protecting what they have always protected. The beauty here is in the details. From the traditions of Ashitaka's tribe to the daily lives of the inhabitants of Tataraba, the rules by which great gods must live, even down to the tiny little brush strokes like how everyone must carry their own bowl. Everything adds up to a believable setting, even within this rather romanticized image of old Japan. Just one line can hint at the history of an entire culture with no need for further embellishment. With an imagined world so rich and so full of details, the supernatural elements become quite easy to accept. There's a whole mythology here, of course heavily derived from traditional Japanese storytelling, but with a very unique flavour all of its own. Yes, the plot might be a little lacking in focus in places, and a little too reliant on contrivance, with Ashitaka just going to exactly the right place at the right time over and over again. And the thing that most people seem to complain about, the final act, does seem to be establishing its rules on the fly. So I do understand why some consider it perplexing or even really quite lazy in its storytelling. But I find this final act exciting enough to seem fitting, replete with stunning visuals, and at the end uplifting enough to provide the feeling of a mostly happy ending. Besides, Miyazaki excels at characters, relationships, and world building over strong, tightly plotted narratives. And I don't think there are many better examples of world building elegantly told with the brevity of a single feature film than you find here. Not just in Miyazaki's films, not even just in animation, but in all of storytelling in general. Now, I do prefer the subtler, more naturalistic and more atmospheric original language track, but Neil Gaiman's dub is one of the stronger ones I've heard. Like I said, it was the first way I experienced the movie. Now, I'm not about to ignite a subs versus dubs debate here, but this is one of the few dubs that I don't find objectionable.
How dare you!
Be warned though, some people do find Gillian Anderson's performance quite jarring, though I quite like it. What I also love about Mononoke-hime is when considered as part of a body of work, it really shows off the versatility of the studio and this director. Here he goes for an epic tone in a rather more serious way than he did back in Laputa or Nausicaa. That the man who wrote, directed and came up with the aesthetic for this can also write something as tiny, heartwarming and sweet-natured as Totoro, or as comically jaded and knowing as Porco Rosso, or as whimsical as Sento Chihiro, or as grounded and personal as Kaze Tachine. That I think is really inspirational. That's some incredible range, and it makes me very happy that, you know, the vicissitudes of the world allowed this man to be able to make these expressions of his art. And yet, sure, now he might be so popular and universally adored that it's something of a cliche to love Miyazaki films. And you know, anime hipsters might sneer at me from behind their body pillows at liking such a normie director. But you know, it wasn't quite the same thing back in 2001. Check me out trying to out-hipster the anime hipsters. But no, Ghibli's films are lauded and considered Oscar-worthy because they deserve it. I honestly do believe that, and this film is a great example of that. That's of course not to say that many other animated films and animated series are not worthy of great praise. They are, and I'm hoping to cover them all here on this channel. But when I was considering where to start with animation, I thought this might be a perfect place. Okay, thank you for watching my first video on the subject. I plan to make more and more of these kinds of reviews, trying to keep them on the shorter side compared to my videos about classic works of literature and art. So yeah, if you're interested, please stick around for many more of this kind of review. That's all for today. Thank you for watching once more, and I'll see you next time.